The Lift+Love podcast is rooted in faith, family, and the conviction that loving LGBTQ people is a calling to be embraced, not feared. Produced by the Lift+Love team, we focus on topics relevant to Latter-day Saint LGBTQ individuals and their parents, relatives, friends, and others who are navigating this space with faith. Across episodes, hosts from the Lift+Love team and their guests address current topics, offer practical support, and share experiences related to LGBTQ+ issues. Each conversation is grounded in compassion, honesty, and a commitment to keep families connected to each other and Christ. Learn more and access resources at liftandlove.org. We're so excited to be here. We're with Ingrid Smith, all the way from Toronto, Canada. And I started seeing this woman on Instagram, and she was straight right into the camera about my age, which I always think is brave for women our age because we didn't grow up with Instagram. And she was talking about trans kids and being a trans parent and how to best be a trans parent. And she was so straightforward, funny, like top of her game on Instagram, which I'm always impressed with. And like when she's got a voiceover, and I think it's Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada. And she said, "Hey, parents of trans kids, pull yourself together. We have a lot of work to do." And by we, I mean you, which I loved. So just a great message. And so I reached out to her and I said, "Hey, do you want to do a podcast with us?" "You are." And so she did some research. And
Smart.
we have had a conversation, and I just knew that she would be perfect for our listeners because she deals so straightforwardly with having a trans child. So, Ingrid, we're excited to have you with us and to share what you've learned. Yeah, you've got a lot to teach us.
Yeah, so glad to be here.
Yeah, you are really thriving in this space and doing great teaching, which I really am grateful for. Why don't you tell us a bit about your personal story?
I'll tell my part of it because let me start by saying I'm a mom of a trans kid. My daughter's 28. And the one caveat I always come in with is that she is good with me talking about this stuff as long as I stay in my territory. So I talk about my experience and what transpired over the last 6 years between us and for me as a mom. I'm also a coach for parents of trans kids. So my purpose on Instagram is to provide information, support, guidance, steadiness for parents whose kids have come out as transgender and who may be struggling with that. How that evolved is that when I was going through the early stages with my kid and I was experiencing quite a bit of struggle, I started to come to the understanding that the best outcome for a transgender person is that they can receive gender affirming care and that they have full support from at least one parent. And it's their perceived support. So meaning they have to believe that we are fully supportive. If it's even perceived to be partly supportive, it doesn't have the same protective factor. And yet my experience and the experience of many of my parents of trans kid peers that I met in the beginning, in the early stages, are often feeling very judged, very excluded. Definitely. They find from the helping community that they often are being sent out of the room for good reason, because the caregivers or the therapists are worried about the child hearing what their parents are grappling with. But also they're often excluded because their families judge, they lose friendships. The context what we're talking a bit about today, they find themselves struggling within their communities, like communities of faith. They feel a resistance to what's happening, but then they often resist that resistance because they feel like it's their responsibility to be supportive, and they get trapped in this cycle of, I feel this, I shouldn't feel this. I feel this, I shouldn't feel this. And so my biggest goal is to support trans kids by supporting their parents.
It's
Ingrid, in a nutshell. You just explained me.
Totally.
And I thought I was unique.
Totally.
And I'm glad I'm not, and I'm glad you're not, because we need lots of us out there to pass that message on and to recognize that if a parent is even willing to have the conversation, they're already open. The door is open.
Right. Yeah.
They just need help coming through.
Well, and I always say raising a trans kid, being a trans person is next level. Like, this is very hard. And it's hard in the way that there's zero. For gay kids, bisexual kids, there may not be a great handbook out, but there's definitely a lot of worksheets out there to help us through. There's a lot of people that have been going ahead of us that have done this openly and bravely, but not so for trans people. And I think that's why you struck me so much, is just the confidence with which you were speaking and the great advice you were giving. And I'm so excited because of the way you talk about the parents and the kids, and you're really honest. And like you said, like you got some work to do. Everybody has some work to do on this one.
Right.
And
to that
yeah,
point, I think one thing, Ingrid, that I feel like is so validating with your account and your content is recognizing the complexities and being honest about it. I feel sometimes torn between wanting to show I'm so affirming, but that doesn't mean it doesn't come with complexity, right? And so acknowledging like this is a path that, like Allison said, there isn't a real handbook to go on, but there are people like Ingrid doing this amazing work, acknowledging and validating those complexities for parents. We need to hear it. We need to hear that we're not alone, that this is okay, and what to do about it. I'm sure dive into that, but I so appreciate that validation because it's just not as forthcoming as you would hope.
Totally.
Another point I'd make is that if we don't have arenas like your podcast, like my Instagram, like some of the support groups that are out there and the resources, if we don't have those, who do parents go to? They go to their kids. They tell their kids, this is too hard for me. I'm really struggling. They use words to their kids like, I'm grieving. I miss the son I used to have. I want my old identity back.
Right.
And those are all super legitimate interior experiences. And we need to be able to bring them out and examine them, but not with our kids.
Right.
Not with our kids who don't want to hear, I like the old version of you better, because we're basically saying, I liked it when you masked. I liked it when you were hiding
totally
about yourself. So we need to create those arenas so that parents can keep it out of the conversations with their child.
It's so true. And, if you happen to lose friends because of this, or old people that you were very close to step away from you, like sharing that with those kids, that puts a tremendous, all of it, the religious part, it just puts a tremendous burden on the person that can do nothing about it. And I love that you talk about this so often, about the parents' feelings, because you do give permission to feel, and you give also guidance in how to feel, where to feel, and what's appropriate. So,
Right.
So needed.
Yeah. Good.
So I have a question for you. It's a little out of order than what the questions we had lined up, but I want to just kind of nail this point. And that it's really not advisable or appropriate for parents when their kids come out as trans to express their grief to their trans kid. So I guess what else is important to avoid doing when your child comes out as trans? And also what's good to do?
Right.
I'm sure that there's a whole list of both, but what are some top things that you're like, be sure you do X, Y, and Z, don't do it, A, B, and C?
I think about that a lot, and I have created resources for parents around this, and I've talked about this in presentations. But at the end of the day, you don't usually know it's coming. So how can you possibly prepare?
Right.
So I could say, don't tell your kid you're grieving. Don't tell your kid you're sad. Don't burst into tears in front of them. And then on the positive, do say, I'm glad you told me. Do say, I'm proud of you for figuring this out. And even do say, wow, I'm glad you told me, but I'm going to need a little time to let this land. Can I come back to you in a couple of days once I've kind of figured myself out? But I'm proud of you and I love you. But in the actual moment, you don't have that cheat sheet. So I think the first thing I say is, however you responded, well, that's how you responded. It's more a matter of recognizing afterwards what you maybe need to repair. So not what you shouldn't have said, but what, if you said this, how it may have landed with your kid. And to, as much as possible, open your heart to what some parents feel is criticism. So they'll say, when their kid says, that really hurt me when you said that you've lost a son, Or someone told me their parents said, I wish you had just been gay. Why couldn't you just been gay? And their kid just felt like knife in the heart. When the kid brings that forward, a lot of parents are like, are you kidding? You delivered this huge piece of news and you expected me to react differently. And it turns into this like argument defending your reaction. So I think what parents really should or need to do is have self-compassion. I did react that way. Acknowledge for themselves, that was hard for me. If you need more support than what you can bring yourself, go and get support from a therapist, from someone like me, from a support group. But when you're talking to your kid, listen. So when they say that hurt me, say, I know, I'm so sorry. I responded so unwisely. And if I could do it again, this is what I would say. Can I have another chance? That's how you build the trust back up. That's how you create the repair for something that you didn't do on purpose, but that you weren't prepared for. But no one ever gave me a script, or I've never known this. I've never seen this path before. I know it hurts you and I'm sorry. I want to be supportive going forward, and I'm doing the work to figure this out, figure out my side of it. And I want to be here for you. Let's work on the you part.
Yeah, such wise words. It's interesting too, because there's that initial reaction, which you said, recognize maybe you didn't do it, weren't prepared, and maybe didn't do it well. And repair is so essential. I'm about 5 years into this journey with my oldest. And even still, there are things that I am unclear about navigating. So for example, when I have a memory that I want to share with her, but it refers back to her when she was younger, or I want to like show her a picture and share a memory together, I don't know how she's going to feel. Like, she's never asked me to take the pictures down off the walls or anything of that sort. But I guess sometimes I'll say like, hey, I wanted to show you a picture. Is that okay? And I just kind of prepare, and I always try to still be open to the dialogue and not just assume. We've gotten to a point where we can just be casual about fluidity between when you used to be this way and when you were that. And it's still something I'm figuring out.
That was beautifully put, Doris, because really it comes down to having done the work, whether that's reading books or listening to people talk and understanding that this could be a topic. That's the research part, right? That educating yourself that your child may have feelings about their past selves. They may have problems with the pronoun that you use when you talk about the past if you use their former pronoun. That's the education piece. But the individual piece has to be a dialogue between you and your kid. And it's always do whatever you have to do to be open before you have the dialogue. Don't go in being like, but I want to keep all the photos, and he better say that it's okay to keep them on the wall, because that's what I hear a lot from parents. Yeah. So the work is softening, being ready for the conversation, and then finding out what they want. Because that topic alone comes up pretty much with everybody. And the range of responses is everything from, oh yeah, keep up the pictures even of my like high school graduation where I was dressed in a prom dress and was standing with a boyfriend. I don't care, because I used to be that person. That's part of my history. All the way to the kid who is like, burn them down. Every single one, because I hate the life I had before. And that hurts. That hurts so much. And I don't think necessarily that burning them down is the answer. There's scrapbooks and memory boxes under your bed and your own history. But even if it hurts, it's understanding where your kid is coming from and what's happening for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Prioritizing their health over my feelings. I admit that when she went through her keepsakes a couple of years ago and she was getting rid of things from her childhood, especially things that were like personalized, I was like, I'm going to take those and just tuck them away. Like, I have them. I don't even look at them. But then the fact that I still have them, I just wasn't ready yet to let go of that. And I'm okay with that. And it's not anything that is not affirming to her. I think we can honor both. But prioritizing my child's health is where, what are driving my actions.
Yes. And it's prioritizing your kid's health. It's not like something small. It's not like, oh, I should let them eat dessert every night before dinner. This is something that the negative impacts result in things like self-harm, suicidality, and deep depression and anxiety. It's big stuff, not small stuff. And then the other
Absolutely.
thing about it is, I think as parents, especially moms, we have this saying about we're only as happy as our least happy child.
Mhm.
So if you think about that, if my kid is devastated if I have photographs up on the wall and I decide, well, it's my history too, and they're pictures of our family, and I'm going to prioritize putting them up. How am I even prioritizing my own well being? Because my kid is devastated.
Right.
Right.
So
You're shooting
now I'm
yourself in the foot.
devastated.
Right.
I've got to find some kind of win win where I can keep some of my mementos in a way that is acceptable to them or that is personal and private. I've not without 100% agreeing with their point of view.
Mhm.
Does that make
Such a good
sense? So
point.
I can
Yeah.
feel like, well, I think there were some happy times back then, but yeah, I don't have to convince you. I can live with my
Right.
memories being mine and yours being
Yeah.
yours.
I love that framing of a win-win like
Yeah.
that.
I think there's going to be a lot of people listening right now that are like, oh my gosh, I never thought about family photos. And
Mhm.
I mean, I have an entire basement that's end to end photos of our history. Like, just listening to you, I think, oh my gosh, how hard that would be. So I hope there's a lot of people that are listening that are thinking, this is not at all what I thought. And this is hard because this is only one small piece of the recalibration that has to happen within the hearts and the minds and the central nervous system of parents and children to when a child comes out. And I hope that people who don't have children in this space can see how much support, patience, and love both parent and child need to you. And this
Definitely.
is not anything I've ever had to deal with. And yet I'm in this space 24/7. Rather than stepping away from friends, it's the time to lean in and not tell them what to think, but just ask them how they're handling this. I love learning from you too, because it's a big deal. Like, I'm just thinking, wow, like that right there impacts everything. Just all my memories, all of,
Yeah,
my
I don't
pictures.
remember. I remember, so when my daughter came out, she gave me a PFLAG booklet of like, here, educate yourself. And so I thought, like, I feel like I know some of it. And when I read the part that your kid might want you to take down family pictures, I remember just like dropping the book and just thinking, will I be able to do that? Is that going to be the dividing line? And it was just, I was prepared for it. She's never asked me to, like I said, but it was a big one. And like Ingrid, to your point of like this win-win, how can I make this a win if I'm taking pictures down? Well, guess what? I just go get new pictures and I have, and so with her marriage last summer, we've got pictures of their wedding. And so now I have new, fresh memories that can celebrate her and it feels like a win-win.
Yeah. And then there's also, if you feel really sad still about the photos that are in a box somewhere, compassion for yourself. You're sad. You might be sad forever about that piece,
Mm-hmm.
because it is a difficult thing to think of those times that were so precious to you as being hard for your kid, right? Because that's not the dream that we have, that we'll look
No.
over family photos in the future and your child will be like, ouch, that's not what we wanted.
Right.
Adding the current photos, adding celebrations of things like weddings or graduations under their identity that they've embraced, that's wonderful, but you can still be sad. It's okay
Yeah,
to
good
have
point.
both, to
Mhm.
be both.
You're so good at talking through that. Let me ask you, you are a coach and you only deal with parents of trans and non-binary children. Is
Only
that correct?
both. Non-binary people, a large number of them would consider themselves under the umbrella
Yeah.
of transgender.
Yeah.
Some don't, and
Yeah.
some don't because they don't feel like they belong, and some don't because they resist definitions
Mhm.
like that. So, I mean, everybody has differences, but yes, from a parent point of view, I would deal with both. And on a very, very occasional basis, I have had conversations with trans adults, not young people. They're young. I don't have their parents' permission to work with them. But based on my own lived experience, I don't have any particular insight into the experience of a trans person. But I have spoken to some on Instagram through direct messages or in person in connection calls who want some guidance around talking to their parents. And my main goal then is to, if it's what they're looking for, provide them with some of the perspectives their parents might have and help them separate those from their own self-worth. So people who are feeling like my mother said this awful thing to me because that's what she feels and I have lost her, I have the capacity to say, or she was deep in her inner child or deep in her wounded self. And she said some pretty crappy things to you. And now she's in shame because she hurt you so badly. And maybe you can realize that your worth is not dependent on her reaction. And how do you want to move forward? But I try to keep those really short, like one session, because I don't have the lived experience and because there are a lot of amazing transgender people who are doing this work for other trans people, and their voices need to be the ones that are listened to.
I like that.
Ingrid, a question I have for you, because I've actually helped host and moderate, we have monthly support groups, and one is parents of trans and non-binary kids. And so I know what I hear when I have moderated that group, but I'm curious for you to tell us what are like the common concerns and complexities parents come to you. Like you're like, I know immediately these are the topics we're going to tackle up front. What usually are the top ones, the biggest concerns or complexities you hear?
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, the number one is the one I mentioned, that they are struggling with their own resistance. So they feel like a part of them is going, I don't want this to be true. I don't want this for my kid. And then another voice is going, I thought I was open-minded. I thought I was a really good mom. How can these both be happening to me at the same time? And that resistance comes out either directly, like by them describing what I just said, or by them saying things like, I know her name and pronouns, but they're stuck in my throat. I can't make myself say them. I'm smiling at her all the time and telling her how supportive I am, but inside I'm dying. And so I say almost nothing. Or another really common one is my kid brought it up. I said all the right things, and then we never talked about it again. And a year has passed and he's spiraling and I don't know what to do because I'm scared that if I bring it up, it will be true.
Oh, so they're avoiding it.
So it's stuck in the
so many possibilities.
Denial in the grieving process.
Yes.
It's because
that's really common.
When I have done the select times I've participated in these calls, there's usually a mix of parents who have come to terms with their kid coming out and they're kind of on this path of helping their child navigate. And then there's those that come in with like deer in the headlights, like this is just fresh new. Often the biggest topic of conversation in these hour-long meetings is hormone therapy or gender affirming care. There are parents that are just like, they want all these things. And there's so much information and misinformation and conflicting information. And they just are so confused. And that is generally the main topic of conversation, where parents who have been on this path are bearing testimony of like, this was life-saving for my child. I was where you were, and so I wonder, does that come up in conversation too?
Always concerns about everything from how does this work to I don't want to be the one making decisions, but they're underage, to we've made the decision and now care has been denied in our state or in part of the world. All of those. I think a lot of it at the end of the day still ties back to the first thing that I said, that sometimes what's actually happening, a parent is talking a lot about the risks, for example, of HRT and how their kid doesn't fully understand the risks. And they want to talk to the doctor because they believe these risks might mean it's not a good idea to proceed. But what's under it is this is a choice my kid is making to do this, as opposed to gender affirming care, which is this is who my kid is and this is what they need to be able to survive in the world as themselves.
Can you reiterate those two differences one more time? I think those are important.
Yeah, I think parents see themselves as wanting more information in order to protect their child's safety. But when we get right down to it, they are afraid of what's coming ahead, to some extent feeling like this is a choice that their kid is making. Because if you think of something that we fully accept, like your child is diabetic, nobody says, he needs to go on insulin because he's diabetic, but we have to research the risks to see if it's worth it.
And he's just
Right? 'Cause
choosing to be diabetic.
Yes. And it's partly because a doctor who we trust, a doctor that we trust has told us, I know a lot about diabetes, more than you'll ever know. And this is what I'm recommending that you do so that your child can live with diabetes as opposed to being taken out by it.
Yeah.
The doctor is saying to us, we know that this is your child's identity, or your child says this is their identity, and we believe them. And we know that their mental health outcomes are going to be very poor if we don't give them gender affirming care, which is really how doctors make these decisions. It's not that HRT is so like, oh, who cares? It's no big deal. It's more that
The
not
risk
getting
factor.
it.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yes.
Is we sit in that situation and say, well, if my kid wants it bad enough, they'll pay for it themselves. Or we say, I'm not sure if this is the right choice for you because there are risk factors. A lot of that comes back to, have we come to terms with that this is who our child is saying that they are, and have we decided to be 100% on board? And I'll add one little piece, because this is not like a really clear path in a way. It's not like doctors are saying that they can see on a slide under a microscope that, yes, indeed, you don't just think you're trans, but you actually are. Allison, it's that they understand that when a person says they're trans, the data is saying that if we do not provide gender affirming care and parents are not supportive, their risk of suicide and self-harm goes up by 40% higher than their peers.
Right.
And that risk is way worse than the risk that they'll embark on HRT. And the detransition rate for people going on HRT is lower than the regret rate for breast augmentation, for nose job,
For cancer treatments. It's lower
For
than
cancer
it is for cancer treatment, which
I
is,
think it's one of the lowest regret rates out there.
yeah. And it's just that the very few regrets are publicized so much. This is something that people are getting off, they're catching it from other people, or the idea that they can do it, so they are doing it for sports. I mean, all of these really, for people who live this reality, really ridiculous statements.
Well, especially when it's so bloody hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like nobody.
Like, oh yeah, please sign me up to have half the world hate me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let me choose this identity that people decide I can't go to the bathroom anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Like what?
Who
How
signs
can I
up?
get a big target on my back? Like the biggest target on
The
my
biggest
back.
target for right now. I mean, there's not a bigger one right now. Well, and to segue into our last part, I've done a lot of research in scripture. The Hebrew Bible speaks to gender diversity. And even back in the early writings of the Talmud, they understood that this was medical for a lot of people, intersex people, and that some people were born more effeminate. Like those were acknowledged medical actualities. And now we've put that all into, well, it's made up. So there is reason that people are really struggling to understand this and to move from, oh yeah, this is something you've chosen, into, regardless, I'm going to take care of you in the best way we can do right now, and know that you know yourself. So one of the things that Ingrid and I talked about at the very beginning, and the reason that she was like, I think when you started seeing that we had such a focus religiously, because that's really we've got the LGBTQ and the world, and then we have this very hard religious section. And you said, you've got these people that you coach, your clients, who really struggle with this, and you yourself are not religious. So, and since we're sort of deep in the LDS, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints culture, I would love to hear from you what you see from parents who are religious, of any religion, of any faith, and what the complications there are.
I am not religious, but I consider myself sort of religion adjacent because I did grow up going to church. It was a huge part of my ethical upbringing. And
Sure.
This is going to sound funny to anyone other than maybe me, but I saying to my husband, I kind of follow that idea of like, what would Jesus do? Even though I'm not a religious person, because of the ethical, deep love, but strong, boundaried love that I feel I was taught through his example. So I have that. And my child is actually very religious. So she is part of a Lutheran religion and is actually the chair of her church.
Isn't that great?
She does sermons. She started as an intellectual experience. She's very bright and she just was curious and is now very committed as a practicing Lutheran. So I have those connections.
Yeah.
With my clients, I'm going to say like a good third to a half of my clients bring up religion. And they fall into two groups. So the bigger group is people who are talking about the struggles they have in their church community, where when it becomes public information that their child is trans, and more significantly, they are supporting their child in whatever way they're supporting, they find themselves rejected, outcast sometimes held, but criticized, told that, you are straying from the path and you need to bring your kid back, or you need to step away from your child if that's what they're going to do. There is a sense that there is a debate, but there isn't a debate because a debate has two sides.
Right.
There's an openness to discovering some third truth, not my way, and a constant push and pull, but a way of finding a way forward. And this is what they find the hardest. And then the other group, the big struggle is...
Let's just point out, that's a really good point.
Sure.
That it feels like there's a debate, but it's a one-sided debate. Because as parents, we're not having that debate. It's like this, and we believe divinely we're meant to guide and protect our children. I mean, I think that's not even just a religious feeling, but just especially as moms. I mean,
sociocultural,
right? Yeah. And try and break that connection. Like, I dare you. Yeah. No, but we have that. And then, go ahead, Therese.
But we're told that this is our divine calling as women, as mothers, like this bond. And then when we go to assert that authority of like, this bond is my calling, my divine duty, it's like those without the experience, but with the religious authority trump our experience.
Yeah.
And there isn't the debate. There isn't the conversation. We told you that this is how it is. And we're saying God told us that this is not how it is.
Yeah.
And there isn't a conversation to find that third way, even though in this space and in this work, we are trying desperately to show that there can be a third way, but there's not the conversation.
An opportunity to stay in the fold
while
figuring it out.
Yeah.
As opposed to you have made this decision to support your child. There's the door.
Yeah. Right. There's a reason why our mascot is a black sheep. I mean, we have little black sheep ornaments and they sell like hotcakes, unfortunately.
But this is the truth. And it is that. I love that. I'm going to think about that for a while. That idea that there's this debate going on because there isn't.
Yeah.
Or
a conversation even, and there's just, we don't get anywhere.
Thanks for sharing that. Okay, and then you had a second part to that. So there was
the other group, which is the one I heard resonating in one of the podcasts I listened to, one of your episodes, is parents who suddenly come to the realization that their child, having struggled with their faith or struggled with church, perhaps they're a late teenager, early 20s, and they've left the church, or they continue to go, but they have anxiety about it, they resist, they have struggles, and parents suddenly, when their kid comes out, are like, the messages that my child has been sitting in church listening to with my authority behind it, because I took my kid, which means that not only are they hearing God thinks this, but they're also thinking, and my mom brought me here. So she thinks this too. So the self-loathing, the I'm bad and evil, I almost like a internalized conversion therapy that is going on inside that person. And the parent suddenly is sitting in a session with me saying, I did that.
I did it.
I did that.
I think we can all feel
similar
that.
to the coming out moment. It's a feeling of like, how do I repair this with my kid? And how do I repair it while I stay in my relationship with God?
One of the biggest problems I saw in my brother as his life just got harder and harder was, it's one thing if your parents don't understand or your neighbors, but if God doesn't like you, if God is not happy with who you are, like that is really, really hard. to overcome. People are like, oh, everyone leaves the church who's LGBTQ. I'm like, well, it's a little bit like, I'm going to break up with you because before you break up with me, you don't like me.
Yeah.
You can't stand me. So I can't stay in that relationship.
Yeah.
And then when a parent's like, oh my word, like that messaging, even though my son has left, now I hear it from the voice. I hear it from all the people who I have talked to in Lift+Love. I can see those are exactly the points.
Some people have kids who say, I've left, but you haven't.
Mm-hmm.
Why haven't you? If you think that the words that were said to me were not okay, why are you still there? So the parent, again, is in this moment of, I'm still there because that's my family, my larger family. This is my support system. But more importantly, this is where and how I connect to my higher power, to God.
Yeah.
And some kids are like, yeah, I get it. Some kids are not like, yeah, I get it. Some kids are like, that's proof that you're not with me, you're against me.
Yeah. And
so again, how does a parent reconcile that? And some of it is they ask these questions of, how do I live with God's disapproval? And I can say back, is that what you're living with? Do you have God's disapproval?
Yeah.
Is that what's happening? And I'm not religious, which makes my questions a little bit more neutral. It's actually literal.
And it's nice to hear it not in our religious language, because, and to know that it's universal. Because, very kernel center of all of this is the question, is God disappointed in these children? And I think a lot of people would say yes, maybe. But as mothers, we're like, no way. And that is a really complicated space to sit in as a parent, going back to church and trying to connect with God. I mean, it's what they need is more support, not less. And, a deeper personal commitment or conversation with God in that. Yeah. It's hard.
And
it's
I think a healthy understanding of differentiation. I mean, that's how I've been able to stay, is to be able to say, this religious organization is not God, and these people can make mistakes and it can hurt. And I can get to the point where I can't tolerate this spiritual violence against this group of people. I'm really hoping that by speaking up and help, like creating safe spaces, I can help people belong, at least at a local level and my congregation level. But that power of being and giving yourself permission to differentiate between an organization or institution and God helps. And I think sometimes if an individual hasn't developed that tool, that inner tool, then it's going to be big, but hopefully they can begin to start separating those things out and looking more objectively so that they don't feel a rejection from God, that it is a disagreement with the institution who is trying to figure this out and trying to protect the institution. And I understand where they come from. I don't agree with how they're doing it.
That's
well
beautiful.
Put. Well put.
Yes.
Ingrid, thank you so much. Thank you for this.
This is great.
And I know that there are going to be parents who are desperate for more. So follow the way forward for the number 4 parents, and you'll find Ingrid and her lovely trusting face on Instagram. You're going to love it as much as I do.
And her amazing dance move. Can we actually give a moment for the dancing? I mean, that's pretty impressive. You could lead a dance
I have
class.
absolutely no moves. No moves.
Oh, I don't know.
Don't be sending people so they'll come and be like, that's not a dance move. That's just her wiggling all over the place.
Well,
So
you're
embarrassing,
love it.
but yeah.
You're
fun.
doing next level work, and I love getting to know you, and I love what you're doing, and I think we all feel connected in this good work of changing things for our kids,
And it's
this work has to get done. Well,
I think it's amazing that you guys are having these conversations through your podcast, that parents who are searching for the debate and the discussion and the real conversation, and who want to wrestle with this, who don't want to just make one sweeping statement, but want to figure out the subtleties. I think it's amazing that you're offering that kind of an arena for that to happen.
Well, you're our partner in it now, so thank you. Thank you for your time. It's so great. Thank you for joining us. If you like what we share, subscribe to the Lift and Love podcast. And if you have a minute, leave us a 5-star rating so other families like yours can find us. When your child comes out, you need to find support where you feel safe and understood. This is why we created the Lift and Love community, a place where families can connect, learn, and grow in a private setting. If you feel like you need more information, support, or resources, check out liftandlove.org and liftandlove.org on Instagram and Facebook. But most importantly, remember, you are not alone in this journey. We are building a community of thriving, faithful LGBTQ individuals and their families who are here to lift and love you.